All right, everybody, welcome to Brighter. So just like Tesla, Rivian just released their report for the Q3 output, reporting on both production and deliveries, and they beat analyst expectations both quarter by quarter and also year by year. And they also reiterated their goal that they're on track for 52,000 vehicles for this year. So while these numbers look great, the question is, how is Rivian actually doing? How do they compare to Tesla when Tesla was at that stage at that time? And will they be able to survive despite losing $33,000 per vehicle at this time? So today we have Hans Nelson with us. He has his own YouTube channel at Hans C. Nelson, and he has his X account also at Hans C. Nelson. Welcome, Hans. Appreciate you joining me.
Thanks, Herbert. Always enjoy having conversations with you on all kinds of topics, but Tesla specifically is a great fun one.
It is. Last time we did one on AI and people really enjoyed that. So today we're going to be talking about Rivian and whether or not what's going to happen to their business. They look like they're doing well. So let's quickly report what's happening. They did this report yesterday and it looked really good, right? So they beat Q3 estimates with their deliveries and production. Their production was 16,300 vehicles for Q3 and they delivered 15,000 vehicles. And that that production is 16% increase over Q2 and 121% increase over Q3 of last year. So they doubled their production in this quarter compared to last year. And then they think that they're still on track to 52,000 vehicles this year. And they're going to release their the finances on November 7th. What's your take on this? And while you're talking about this, I will play a little bit of the video of what we're talking about.
So first of all, I think that is a great job by the team. You know, Elon always says that prototypes are easy, production is hard. And so it seems like Rivian is doing a good job on solving their production ramp, and they're continuing to grow, like you said, both quarter over quarter and year over year. And so they're doing a lot of things right. And I really am excited to see that for them. The goal is to transition the entire world to a sustainable energy transport model. And to do that, it would be helpful if Tesla was not the only player. And so I love to see other companies who are able to succeed and kind of solve the problems that they have in front of them to make good, compelling electric vehicles. And, I think Rivian is really one of the premier companies that's actually able to deliver a compelling electric vehicle. And so, yeah, that part I'm really excited about.
Yeah, so just this weekend, my wife and I were at a shopping mall here in Seattle, and we actually walked by the Rivian store, and she just made some comments that she doesn't like the lights. They make it look funny. But we started talking about it. We do want Rivian to succeed. They might have a real chance at this. And then later in the conversation, I'll be asking you what happens to Rivian, even though they look like they're appearing now. What happens when Cybertruck comes on? So in that video we saw the 3 vehicles that Rivian is producing. There's that Amazon van. They're funded by Amazon. Although I think we've reported, with you a month or two ago, that Amazon did not actually invest. They did not end up asking for the 200,000 vehicles that they wanted. They only did a fraction of that, but they still invested in Rivian. And in addition to the van, they also have the R1T and the R1S. And so I just took a look at this, and it says the starting prices for these are 75,000 and 80,000. But we know also that once they actually, start adding things to it, it's going to get closer to 100,000 each. So this Xander Walker, I didn't share that video. There we go. Yeah. R1T and the R1S, starting prices 75 and 80,000. And then this Xander Walker here, he actually worked at both Rivian and Tesla. So I thought it's worthy to take a look at his tweet and his comments. He actually is very, very positive about Rivian. And so he basically says here that if you compare where Rivian was, where Tesla was in 2012, and where Rivian was at 2021, that it looks like that Rivian's actually doing very well. They're pacing along quite nicely. So if you look at this chart here, and Rivian is in the blue, Tesla is in the red. Tesla started in 2012, and then Rivian 2021. So it looks like that Rivian is outpacing where Tesla was. What's your comment or thoughts about this evaluation?
I think there's a couple of interesting things here. One of, the fact that they started Tesla in 2012, that was the ramp of the Model S. And so, it's good to see that they're not comparing that to the Roadster. That does kind of favor on, puts Tesla in a little bit better light. But by also the same token, the Rivian has been a company for longer. They've had more runway than Tesla has to kind of figure those things out in advance. And, it, like we said, if you start that chart in 2012 with Tesla, they had already been making vehicles for a long time. And it took Rivian almost 6 years to start any deliveries of any kind. Um, and so, just depends on what context you want to look at. But I agree with Xander as far as just the overall takeaway is correct that it is impressive that Rivian has been able to ramp up their production to the level that they have since the start of deliveries to the point that they are today. And, that is just a great example of the work that they're doing. And hopefully that we will just continue to see them build on that success and move forward.
If you can, please consider supporting this channel. It's a lot of work arranging all of these amazing interviews. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. It has over 15 modules to keep you informed. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com. Thank you very much, and let's get brighter. Yeah, so it's really weird to try to compare. I think we need to try to compare where Tesla was at that point, but the environment was so different. It was very, very different at that time too. So let's
especially when you take into account the fact that Tesla didn't have another EV competitor to compete against, and Rivian has to compete with Tesla now, and so they're having to Tesla has created the market for EVs that now Rivian is selling into, and so there are just so many different axes that you could look at to create a comparison against, and there are a lot of similarities, and then there are also distinct differences.
But at the same time, everybody now knows what an EV is. They're buying electric vehicles en masse now, and so it sets the stage easier for them. So
well, and think about all the Tesla customers who wanted a pickup truck, and the Cybertruck wasn't out yet. And so, if you have already been sold on EV and you want that form factor, or if the Model X just is not quite big enough for you, I mean, the R1S and the Model X are relatively close in a lot of ways. But if you need something that the R1S has that the Model X doesn't provide, then, Rivian has the ability to draft off of that customer base, that marketing, that consumer awareness that Tesla has created.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. It's probably a lot of their sales, especially given the small numbers we're talking about. And so this is what Omar from Homar's blog said, that he thinks it's laughable to compare Tesla's deliveries 10 years ago when EVs were still nascent to Rivian now, especially when you consider that Rivian was founded just 6 years after Tesla. So, Rivian has taken a lot longer to get where they were. And then the R1S and R1T are not have yet to outsell the Model S and Model X. And then Emmett Peppers made some good points here. He goes, okay, so Rivian seems to be doing well, but how long are they going to continue doing well? So he's a long-term Tesla investor for over 12 years, so he says he's biased, but he thinks that right now Rivian's looking the best for it. It will look for investors, and it's going to be all downhill from here. So once Cybertruck is officially out, what will happen to Rivian? And he thinks that if Rivian's valuation drops by 5 or 10 billion, it could be very interesting play, but long way down to get there. I don't want them to fail, and it's a great product, but a lot has to go right for them to even warrant the 10 to 15 billion dollar valuation. And there's no, biographies in RJ Scarich, meaning that he's not an Elon Musk. No sleeping on factory floors, no AI team, no top place to work for engineers. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, and I think if you look at Rivian as an investment opportunity and compare it to Tesla, it really does depend on your time horizons. I mean, there is opportunity for some short-term surprises to the upside for Rivian, but like Emmett said, there's a lot of execution and growth that's priced into the stock at these levels. And when you realize that all of the, one of the huge factors that I think is really important to consider when you're looking at an investment is what is the TAM that they're pursuing. And when you look at Rivian the TAM that they're pursuing is a subset of EVs and a subset of the global auto market. When you look at Tesla, you're looking at a company that is trying to sell into a TAM of all vehicles and not just, consumer. Like we've got Cybertruck and the Tesla Semi to go after the commercial. But then you factor on top of that energy division, you factor on top of that the robo-taxi possibility, and then you factor on top of that the Tesla bot. And like you're talking about the TAM of energy, the TAM of labor, and the TAM of commercial transport, and you add those in, it's just a completely different pie that Tesla is pursuing compared to Rivian. And so, anyone who wants to start to assign the types of multiples to Rivian that other investors have assigned to Tesla, they're probably not taking into account what the ceiling is on the level of growth that's possible for a company that's just not pursuing the same size of market.
Yeah. So you think, yeah, I agree with you. There's probably going to be room for both. Okay. So what's interesting, I love this next bit here, is that while we already mentioned that Rivian's losing $33,000 per vehicle on average, but they've been reducing that loss. So they look like that they've been managing it. And the graph here that we'll show is quite impressive. Rivian updates said that, most, if not all, automotive startups operated at a loss in the beginning years of production due to large upfront investment. This is one of the hardest businesses to start. And kudos to Rivian, a pure EV play, which, by the way, I think is the only kind of car company that could survive creating EVs. You have to be a pure EV play. We can talk about that. But they've reduced their loss per vehicle every single quarter. And so this is, the losses per vehicle by quarter used to be 622,000. This is just last year per vehicle. Now they brought it down to 32,000 per vehicle. So it's absolutely concerning that they survive, but they might have actually already gone past the hump. This is the, in table format. What's your thinking about their losses? Are they improving efficiency? Are they just able to now go become much more in scale?
Yeah, I mean, I read that as just economies of scale and the operating leverage of the business kicking in more and more over time. And so I'm excited for that to hopefully flip to the positive. They are facing headwinds now. If Cybertruck really does start to deliver in the next quarter that they haven't had to face in the past, that's a difficult thing. And I think, it's also talking a little bit about Emmett's point and bringing it in here that the opportunity going forward has headwinds for Rivian that they haven't had to face yet, and that may affect the investability of Rivian as a stock right now. But as a company, Rivian is on the right track. They're doing a lot of the right things, and I think they are unique and they are a very valuable asset. Now, is the value that they have necessarily equivalent to the market cap that's being assigned to them right now? That kind of remains to be seen, but that doesn't detract from the fact that this chart is, or the point that this chart is making, that Rivian is an EV manufacturer at scale, and they are knocking on the door of being able to produce these vehicles at a profit, which is not something that any of the other major OEMs can say. And they're also in a product segment that no one else is really pursuing from, well, I say the Lightning kind of plays in that space. But as far as a potentially profitable EV company that's not Tesla, you're looking at someone like BYD. And as BYD grows, I could see a company like Rivian, if they get into a tough spot, being an attractive acquisition target for a company like BYD, because what Rivian is doing is not something that BYD is doing. And I think there's a lot of synergies there. And so I think that, over the long term, we will see some form of Rivian vehicles that continue to survive. They continue to exist in the marketplace. They continue to be an option for consumers because I think that they have developed a compelling product. I think they're going to be able to produce it at a profit. And I think that, overall in the transition, from ICE to EV, that there's going to be demand for those. And, there may be some chaos between here and there in, acquisitions, mergers.
Mhm.
There's going to be a lot of bankruptcies just in the automotive market, in general over the next 10 years. And Rivian's not necessarily going to be immune from all of the changes that are going to happen. But I think we will continue to see that product succeed over the next decade.
I'm actually very glad or thinking that Rivian did a smart move choosing the truck as the vehicle form factor that they're going to focus on. Lucid picking a high end car, sedan car, you know, they're struggling now because there's so many competitors to that, including the Model Y, that is so much cheaper. Who would buy the Lucid? But at least the truck is a different market. They might succeed. So right now, you have different takes on whether or not Rivian will succeed or not succeed, right? There's everything we just said, and then I'm going to show you the Wall Street Journal approach, where they think that this is a crucial time for Rivian. So this came out just yesterday, and they said that EV maker has struggled to keep production up and costs down. All this comes at a cost. Rivian vehicles sell for $80,000 on average. Yet they're so expensive to build that in second quarter, the company lost $33,000 on every one it sold. So while we just showed that it's been dramatically reduced, how much they lost, that amount is still very significant. That's the starting price of a base model Ford F-150. Oh my gosh. So beyond that, of course, we got Sawyer Merritt. He is one of the great Twitter X accounts that you should follow. He's always the breaking news person that we all follow. He was on CNBC last night, and he started talking about the Cybertruck. Cybertruck is about to be launched. So let's watch a short clip of him talking about that. Oops, wrong one.
Talk about first off the Cybertruck, okay? Because we've been waiting for, it's like waiting for Godot, waiting for Guffman, whatever. We've been waiting on this thing for a long time. Do you have any clues as to when we may finally see a Cybertruck on the road?
The Cybertruck is a revolutionary product, sort of unlike anything else, and as a result, it's a difficult product to build. But I think Q4 will finally be the quarter that we see some deliveries. And, I think the unique design is such a good rolling advertisement that Tesla hasn't even bothered to put any logos or badges on the exterior. And I think from a competitive advantage standpoint, I think the Tesla Cybertruck will have a lot of American parts content. Cars.com rates Tesla as having the 4 most American-made cars in the U.S., and that doesn't just include EVs. And the Cybertruck will be built in Texas and will probably be more American-made than any of its rivals.
Oh, so wonderful to see Sawyer there. And then you did say earlier that you think that the Cybertruck and Rivian, there's lots of room for the market. They're different market segments. Any comments of what will happen when Cybertruck is announced? I know that it's going to be a delivery event, and then over next year, slow scale probably is what most people are thinking. What will happen to Rivian?
That's really going to depend on pricing that is released for the Cybertruck, and also their ability to scale deliveries. If they scale deliveries to 500,000 vehicles in the next year and a half per year, that's going to put a lot more pressure on Rivian than if they don't make it to that 375,000 a year run rate deeper into the decade, 2026, 2027. So the slower they ramp Cybertruck, the less pressure that puts on Rivian. And then also the higher the pricing of the Cybertruck, the less pressure that puts on Rivian. Right now we have such a large backlog of Cybertruck orders that it's going to take a while just to exhaust the people who have one on order and people who want an EV truck. Like, there are already tons of people who pre-ordered a Cybertruck and they want an EV truck, and so they have already purchased a Rivian in the meantime. I think that dynamic will still continue. I think just the latent demand for Cybertruck is so high that it's not going to overwhelm Rivian in the short term. Now that could definitely flip, like we said, depending on how fast they're able to ramp and how low they're able to price those things coming out. The other thing is that one of the brilliant pieces of the architecture of the R1S and the R1T is that it does translate and scale more to the commercial vehicle segment, which is exactly why they have those Amazon delivery vans. And if they see too much pressure in the R1T segment, they can do two things. They can expand into the larger SUV segment that currently no one is really servicing. And so you can start competing with the Suburbans, the Yukon XLs, the Toyota Sequoias. And so they can kind of retreat into that segment, which is not something we see any plans from Tesla to get into anytime in the near future. And then we also have no idea when a Tesla van is going to come out. And so continuing to double down on the Rivian platform that they have for the Amazon delivery van, and potentially expanding that product to fit more use cases and more customers, is a continued opportunity that they have in front of them that I don't see really any other EV manufacturers being able to pursue besides potentially Ford right now.
Wow, good points. Love everything you just said. There's so many great points there. The one that I agree with you, which is interesting, like, so Rivian has a chance because it's going to take Cybertruck a little bit longer, as you were saying, to scale up. If they can flip it and become profitable next year, then they have a chance to survive. And then they have a different form factor. So there's going to be people who want the truck. And then what you just talked about was they could actually do SUVs or kind of the delivery area as well. So they've played it right. And they only have 3 models, which is smart. Now, talking about the form factor of the truck, what you're thinking about Rivian versus a Ford F-150? Are they differentiated enough, the Lightning? Are they differentiated enough? Are they pricing and all that? And just are they competing with them, or again, different segments?
When you look at the current truck market for ICE vehicles right now, it shows that there's plenty of room for multiple successful companies, whether they have the same form factor or not, whether they're directly competing. Like, there's tons of Ram 1500s that get sold, and then tons of Ford F-150s that get sold. And so as long as they can solve the manufacturing supply chain challenge and the cost of goods sold, the market is there. And then that said, though, the Rivian R1T is a little bit more niche product. It has capabilities that are a little bit it's just a little bit different than the Cybertruck. There's a whole host of use cases that someone would really love the Cybertruck for that you wouldn't really want an R1T. But then there are some things that are like the R1T could be really good for you as a truck owner. And honestly, just the styling is a huge differentiation. Even if their capabilities are similar, there's going to be a lot of people who just look at the Cybertruck and go, no, I'm not driving that thing. And the R1T is a great product for those people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hans. Appreciate you. Good person to talk to and ask these questions. So folks, follow Hans on X at Hans C. Nelson. He also has his own YouTube channel, does interviews. Check him out on that as well. Thank you very much, Hans. Appreciate this.
Thanks for having me.